Hey everyone, how's it going? Rathius here, back with an updated guide for Arcane Mage. Now, last week, Blizzard thought they'd try and nerf the single target damage of Arcane Mage, and they also wanted to nerf some of the power for Sun Fury. Well, what ended up happening is that Spellslinger now took the lead. And yeah, I finally mastered how to say Spellslinger and not Spellsplinger. God, that took some time, huh? Spellslinger right now on pre-patch is absolutely broken. Well, it's broken on beta as well, but it's pumping on pre-patch. And if you don't believe me, here's a clip from some keys that I ran yesterday. And believe me, it is pumping. Because my mage is barely at 140 eye level with no biz care whatsoever. And if I can pull these numbers off, imagine what a mage that's fully decked out at max eye level and biz scared, imagine the numbers they can do. And if you're wondering how to get those numbers, well, you've come to the right place. In today's video, I'll be going over the core gameplay loop for Spellslinger Arcane, some of the key talents and how they synergize with the hero talents that we're picking, and we'll also be going over the opener and rotation for the Spellslinger Arcane Mage. But before we get to that, I'd like to give a huge thanks to all viewers for supporting me this far. We're up to 57 subscribers now, and it's all thanks to the love and support that you have showed me. And I hope that you continue to show me the same love and support as we move forward so that I can make more such videos. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. First things first, let's address the core gameplay. Now, Arcane Mage essentially revolves around 4 key resources. The first one being mana. Yes, Arcane is literally the only damage spec that still needs to think about mana, and that's one of the things that I love about this spec. Next is your Arcane charges. These can stack up to 4, and it essentially increases the amount of damage that your spells do. Our next resource is Arcane Salvo. Now, this is one of the most critical resources that we need to track. This can be stacked up to 20, and there are ways to build this up as well as expend it using Arcane Barrage. As we go over the rest of the video, I'm going to be explaining what some of these key interactions are, and it should become clear why Arcane Salvo is that important. Our fourth resource, well, it's not really a resource per se, but then these are essentially our 2 big cooldowns. And I classify these as resources because it's something that we track and it's something that we utilize. But, you can consider them as 3 resources plus a cooldown, or you can consider it as 4 resources to manage. Our Touch of the Magi is on a 45-second cooldown, and our Arcane Surge is on a 90-second cooldown, or 1.5 minutes. Timing these perfectly, especially when there are bosses which have vulnerability phases, is critical to our damage. If you mistime these, then you're not going to be doing a lot of damage. And it's also really important to keep both of these in sync. And this is the entire basis of our big burn and our mini burn. Our big burn is essentially our Arcane Surge coupled with Touch of the Magi, and then 45 seconds later when Touch of the Magi is back up, using just that, without the Arcane Surge because it's still on cooldown, that's our mini burn window. And that's the Arcane Mage in a nutshell. In terms of stats, Haste is the most important stat for us. Not only does it reduce the cast time of spells, it also reduces the GCD. And why is this important? Well, a shorter GCD and shorter cast time means we're able to stack up our salvo stacks much quicker, and that we're able to squeeze in more arcane barrages within our Touch of the Magi windows. Therefore, haste is king. Remember that. For the rest of the stats, they're fairly balanced. Versatility, of course, increases our damage done and reduces our damage taken. Crit just makes our damage, fatter when you do a critical strike. And Mastery essentially increases the effectiveness of our arcane charges, meaning that the more mastery you have, the heavier the multiplier from having 4x arcane charges. Next, let's talk about talents. Now, our talents remain pretty much the same in our AoE and our single target scenarios, with just a few minor differences, which we'll talk about. But one thing that you'll notice is that we've actually moved away from arcane missiles and leaned even harder into arcane orb. This is because when you're playing Spellslinger, arcane orb is pretty much the main character of the story. Spellslinger Hero Talents, and we'll go into it in more detail, but essentially what they do is they increase the potency of your arcane orbs, making them hit much harder, and that is why in order to supplement that, we lean down onto the right side of the talent tree, which leans heavier into the arcane orb fantasy as opposed to arcane missiles. Now, if you compare the AoE and the single target talent trees, you'll see that there's just one small difference. Yes, we drop Resonance because it's a single target scenario, and instead we pick up Mana Bomb. This essentially increases the effectiveness of Arcane Surge, and Arcane Surge, as you know, is our big cooldown. One tip that I can give you right off the bat, when you play with this talent setup, just remove Arcane Missiles from your bar. There is absolutely no reason for us to be pressing it, and our rotation is essentially going to boil down to Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage, and Arcane Orb. Of course, there's other cooldowns to manage, and we'll get kind of deeper into that rotation, but TLDR, we don't need Arcane Missiles anymore. In this next section, I'm going to talk about the hero talents that we pick and why these synergies are so important. This is what our current hero talent setup looks like. Of course, once Midnight rolls out, we'll be selecting everything on this tree, but because we don't have those talent points right now, this is the setup that we're going to be running it. And don't worry, I'll be linking these talent setups in the description below, and you can also always find these on Wowhead. Coming to the synergies, let's have a look at the key hero talent synergies that we see here. Starting off with Force of Will. Now, Force of Will essentially causes our Arcane Barrage to conjure up Arcane Splinters for every 5 charges of salvo consumed. Next up, we've got Splintering Orbs. This causes any enemies that have been damaged by our Arcane Orb to conjure up to 2 Arcane Splinters, and this also increases the damage of our Arcane Orb by a whopping 35%. Next up, we've got Polish Focus. Now what this does is that each time you're casting Arcane Barrage at 20 stacks or more of Arcane Salvo, it causes it to refund 5 stacks of Arcane Salvo. On top of this, it also increases the damage of Arcane Barrage by 25%. And this is why it's so important to cast Arcane Barrage at 20 stacks and no less, because if you do it less than that, you won't get the refund on your Salvo stacks, which means that it'll take you that much longer to get back up to 20. Next up, we've also got Infused Splinters. This causes our splinters to have a 25% chance to grant an Arcane Salvo stack. And this is important because this is another way for us to get back up to 20 stacks as soon as possible. And finally, we've got Spellfrost Teachings, which causes our direct damage from splinters to reduce the cooldown of Arcane Orb by 0.25 seconds, which means that we are going to be casting orbs much more frequently. This, combined with the increased damage of Arcane Orb, leads us into the synergies that we find with our main talent tree. If you take a closer look, now Orb Barrage functions so that our Arcane Barrage has a 4% chance to fire off an Arcane Orb per stack of Arcane Salvo, which means that at 20 stacks, you have an 80% chance of actually launching an Arcane Orb. Another great reason why we want to be waiting until 20 stacks to fire off our Arcane Barrage. Next up, we've got Orb Mastery. This works so that each time you have clear casting, our Arcane Orb consumes it, but it also fires off 2 additional Arcane Orbs at our target. And this is great because, as mentioned before, not only does Arcane Orb help us get more salvo stacks, but it also generates more splinters. And we've already talked about how splinters are really important. And finally, we've got Expanded Mind. Previously, only Arcane Blast and Arcane Pulse benefited from it, but now even Arcane Orb benefits from it, and we get 2 stacks of Arcane Salvo from it as well. Now, if you look at all of these spells that I've got on the screen up together, you'll notice that all of these work in conjunction with each other and they synergize really well. So you have this constant feedback loop of expending your splinters and expending your Arcane Salvo stacks and then being able to quickly generate them back up again, which makes the rotation feel really satisfying. Not to mention, it looks really insane when you cast that Arcane Barrage and you see like 3 to 4 different orbs just kind of shooting out of your character, and it just looks amazing. Next up, we're going to talk about the opener. Now, before I get into it, there are 2 sorts of openers. One is where you're pooling your Arcane Salvo stacks before actually getting into your cooldowns, and the other one is firing off your cooldowns right away. Now, which opener you're going to be going for depends on the fight scenario. If, let's say, the fight's going to last long enough that it's going to allow you to actually pool those resources and then get into your cooldowns, I prefer going with the opener with pooling. But if, on the other hand, if mobs are going to die too quickly and you don't have enough time to pool your resources, you can just go for the simple opener without the pooling. Starting off with the opener with pooling. About 2 seconds before the pull, you want to start casting Arcane Blast. As soon as the pull starts, you want to shoot out your Arcane Orb because this is going to help you get some of those Arcane Salvo stacks. And then next, you're going to be casting Arcane Blast up until you get to 20 Salvo stacks. Now, once you hit your 20 Salvo stacks, you're going to be casting your Arcane Surge along with any potions and trinkets that last more than 15 seconds. Once you've done this, your next step is going to be casting Touch of the Magi and popping any potions or trinkets that last less than 15 seconds. Once you've popped your cooldowns, your next step is going to be launching that sweet Arcane Barrage. And right after the barrage, if you've got a clear casting proc, you're going to be launching your Arcane Orb to quickly get back up to those 20 salvo stacks, and then just trying to squeeze in as many Arcane barrages as possible into that Touch of the Magi window. So essentially, when your Touch of the Magi window opens up, you're going to be doing something like barraging into a clear casted orb, getting back up to 20 salvo stacks with Arcane Blast. If you're not already there with your Arcane Orbs and your Splinters refunding those salvo stacks and everything, then you can press Arcane Blast to help you get back up to those 20 stacks. Now you continue doing this until you hit your mini burn window. And like I said before, your mini burn window is essentially going to be the one where you don't have Arcane Surge available to you. And this is going to look very similar. So once you're up to 20 salvo stacks, you pop Touch of the Magi, any trinkets or potions that are available to you that last less than 15 seconds, followed by the same loop, barrage into Arcane Orb if you've got clear casting, and get back up to 20 salvo stacks as soon as possible. Well, there you have it. That's pretty much the rotation. Now, the only thing that changes if you're not pooling resources is that you're not really precasting those Arcane Blasts, and instead you start off with precasting your Arcane Surge about 2 seconds before the pool starts, along with any potions and trinkets that are going to be lasting longer than 15 seconds. After this, you want to be casting your Touch of the Magi and any other trinkets that might be lasting less than 15 seconds, followed by the same cycle of casting your Arcane Blast to get up to 20 stacks of Arcane Salvo, followed by Arcane Barrage, followed by a clear casted Arcane Orb, and again, it's the same loop as we discussed before, and you kind of just rinse and repeat the whole thing. And the mini burn scenario applies here as well. Once you're out of your Touch of the Magi window and you have it back up, you're going to be aiming to get back up to 20 salvo stacks and casting Touch of the Magi, and then rinse and repeat your rotation again with Barrage into a clear casted Orb and working to get back up to your 20 salvo stacks. Now, in this next section, I wanted to cover some of the priorities and nuances with our rotation. Our biggest priority is going to be popping our series on time and making sure they are correctly coupled. You don't want your Arcane Surge and Touch of the Magi to kind of fall out of sync from each other, because then the subsequent burst windows will not line up and you'll end up having to wait either for Arcane Surge to come back up or for Touch of the Magi to come back up, and that'll essentially mess with our fight timings and everything. Our next priority is going to be Arcane Orb, especially the clear casted ones. Now, it's okay to cast an Arcane Orb if you're avoiding capping on Arcane Orb charges, or let's say, for example, you're at the start of the pull so you don't have clear casting. That's completely fine. But as far as possible, if you're not overcapping on salvo stacks and you have clear casted orbs available, I want you to press it. Our next priority is going to be Arcane Barrage. When you're up at 20 salvo stacks and 4 arcane charges, that is the perfect time to be pressing Arcane Barrage, and you want to do it exactly at that point. You don't want to be waiting too much and overcapping on salvo stacks, and nor do you want to do it less than that, because at less than 20 salvo stacks, you miss out on the refund from our hero talents. Now, if you're at less than 4 arcane charges, that might be a good time to press Presence of Mind, especially if you don't have Arcane Orb available to you, because this will make your next 2 Arcane Blasts instant cast, and it'll allow you to get back up to those 4 arcane charges a little bit quicker. A small caveat here, if you're expecting some movement to come up soon and that movement might interfere with your salvo stack generation, you can hold off a bit so that you're able to press Arcane Blast and continue generating those salvo stacks during movement. But other than that, if you have Presence of Mind available and if you're not expecting any movement, feel free to slap it and build back up those arcane charges. Next on our priority list, you guessed it, Arcane Blast. If you're less than 20 salvo stacks, press Arcane Blast, assuming you don't have any Arcane Orbs or clear casted Arcane Orbs available to you. And finally, if you're going to be running out of mana, hit that Arcane Barrage even if you're at fewer stacks, because that's going to help you get back some mana and allow you to cast Arcane Blast again. Well, that's everything for this video. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe below, and let me know in the comments below how you like playing Arcane Mage. I, for one, definitely love it. Once again, big thanks for all your support, especially if you made it to the end of the video. Your support means the world to me, and you can always catch me live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Rathios. Until then, hope you have a good one. Peace.